lovely people, this is Sarah and welcome back to the channel. On today's video I want to tell you about a ritual that I do whenever a new deck, tarot oracle or other comes into my collection. Now this is not going to be me telling you that this is how you have to do it or this is the right way to go about it. Not at all, because I'm not at all about that. I hope you know it by now, but if you don't, just letting you know. This is going to be me telling you about my personal practice and my personal experience, and you can just do with it whatever you like. So if you want to take this entire ritual and do it yourself just the way I do it, you are more than welcome to. If you want to take some bits and pieces and tweak and change other parts of it, you are also more than welcome to. And if you do not want to do any of it because you feel like it's just too much energy spent on it, it's completely okay. You can just get a new deck and just start reading with it right away. It's completely 100% up to you, okay? So with that being said, I just want to say that I'm super excited to be here talking to you about that today, because this is a ritual very dear to my heart. I do not know if there is anyone else doing it exactly the same way I do, because I have been doing this particular ritual ever since I remember. So I do not even know or remember where did I take those bits and pieces from myself. So just saying. I guess without further ado, make yourself comfortable, grab yourself something delicious to drink or a snack or something, and let's get into the video. So before we jump right into the actual steps of the ritual, because it is actually going to be a step-by-step guide, let me break down some things for you first that are quite important to talk about before we jump straight into the ritual. And those things being when to do this ritual, what tools do I use for this particular ritual, and how long will this ritual actually take. So first things first, when to do this ritual. Now of course I'm going to tell you about my preference and my personal experience, as I already mentioned, and I like to do this ritual at night. The reasoning behind it is quite simple. I do most of my witchy activities at night. Why? I don't know, the vibe is just more witchy. No, seriously, I don't know. Every time I want to do something ritual-like or spell work-like, I kinda naturally, intuitively choose to wait until the sun is out and it is the night time. I can light a candle or something and I immediately feel a little more connected to everything spiritual, etc. It is just how I go about it, but technically you can do this ritual whenever you feel like it. I would, however, strongly suggest you do this ritual when you have some moment for yourself, so some sort of peaceful, tranquil moment. It probably highly depends on your living situation, if you live alone, if you live with more people, if you have children or something. I think you will have to see for yourself when can you have a little moment for yourself, when people are not going to be bothering you. Basically, any time of the day that you can find a peaceful moment for yourself. Proceeding, let's talk about some tools that you're gonna need if you choose to do it the same way I do. Remember, you can change and tweak anything you like. So some tools that I use for this ritual are a candle. Now it doesn't have to be any specific color of candle or anything like that. I use a candle for this particular ritual just as a representation of fire. So it can be literally any candle you like. It can be a scented candle, a standard candle, it literally doesn't matter, just a candle. Then an incense. Now I strongly suggest you use incense stick for this one, because we are gonna want the incense to burn for a little longer period of time, and you want your hands free from the incense. And when it comes to a scent, I like to go for Palo Santo scent. Pick somehow cleansing scent. So it can be, as I said, Palo Santo, maybe a sage scent. Again, I do not really recommend using an actual sage. Also careful with the cultural appropriation and stuff. Or maybe rosemary scent or anything that might be cleansing to you. Again, I don't really want to be dogmatic about it. Everyone has different opinion as for what the cleansing scent might be for them, if you will. Then I use a cleansing spray bottle. So I use a specific cleansing infusion that I was taught by my very first witchcraft mentor, and I'm not really going to share that particular infusion here. because it is something so personal and so nostalgic, and I would just like to keep that one a secret. It's very simple one, by the way, nothing too fancy. But since I was taught to me by this mentor, I would prefer it to just stay between me and this person. But you can use literally any sort of water that might have some sort of cleansing properties to it. So it can be as simple as a charged moon water, it can be, for example, a salty water, or it can be some sort of blessed water, or you can go more elaborate and make actual infusions with some herbs, etc. It really depends again on your preferences and what you want to go for. It can also be rainwater. Again, this one is optional as everything here, but I really like to use a spray bottle filled with my cleansing infusion, so to add a little bit of water magic. Then of course you want some incense holder, something to light your candle and incense with, of course your deck, and I would strongly suggest you have some sort of journal or paper and some pen next to you, because you are gonna want to use it during the ritual. With that being said, let's go for the last question that I needed to break down before we get into the actual ritual, and that is, how long will this ritual actually take? So this actually depends, because for me it usually takes around 20, 30, 40 minutes. It really differs. It really differs depending on many things that I'm going to be going through while walking you through the actual ritual. But let's say max 40 minutes, or if you can, make some time for yourself, like an hour or something, so you are chill and you are not like rushing through it. Maybe take an hour with like all the preparations, etc. But usually for me it's 30 to 40 minutes, yeah, I would say. So with that being said, let's get into the actual ritual. So to make it a little bit more structured, I'm going to give you 3 parts that this ritual consists of. So the very first part is cleansing the deck, the second part is going to be charging the deck, and the third part is going to be, let's say, bonding with the deck, even though I was a little bit hesitant whether to call it that, because you bond with deck over time. You are not really going to bond with the deck in 20 minutes. However, just for the sake of naming it something, let's say the third part is bonding with the deck, okay? Let's begin with the part number 1, which will be the cleansing of the deck. So what I like to do as the very first thing is laying the candle, the incense with an incense holder and a spray bottle in front of me, so I have everything on hand. I light a candle and an incense as well, I get the both things going, and I just sit down with my deck ready to begin the cleansing part of the ritual. After I've taken the cards out of the box, I like to pass the entire deck through the incense smoke as a whole. So I'm holding the entire deck, all the cards, I pass it through the incense smoke while I'm visualizing how the incense smoke is cleansing the deck. I do it for a little while, not really too long, because we are gonna be working with the smoke afterwards a little bit more. But after a little, I don't know, a few seconds, a couple of minutes, it really depends how I feel about the deck. Afterwards, I pass the deck above the candle. Now, careful with that. You do not want to pass the deck too close to the flame, okay? Please, fire safety is extremely important, okay? Please. Let's say you have a candle here and pass the deck over like here. Also, you do not want to damage your cards, so please be careful and do not let your deck just sit above the flame, okay? I usually do something like, let me show you real quick. Okay, I just quickly went for one deck so I can show you the motion that I do with it. So I got a deck, okay, this one, yay, it's going to be featuring us in this video. So what I like to do is that I hold the deck in my hand, and when I'm above the candle with it and also above the smoke beforehand, I like to do this kind of motion, like circular motions, and I like to do them kind of quickly so the candle light and heat doesn't damage the cards, okay? Please, please, very important. I do not want your cards damaged, you do not want your cards damaged. And if you are not sure about this step, please skip it. I have been doing it for a long time. I know how to do it without damaging the cards and without jeopardizing the fire safety. However, if you are not quite sure about this one, please feel completely free to skip it. Let just candles sit there and it's okay. I just really want you to be safe, you and your cards to be safe. But this is what I do, okay? So this circular motion above the candle. And just for a little moment, this is not going to take a few minutes. This is literally just a few seconds. And this is basically just me cleansing it with fire, symbolically. While I'm doing that, I am visualizing the fire, heat from the fire cleansing my deck. After that part, what I like to do is the very last part of the quick cleansing, if you will. And you probably guessed it, it is going to be the water cleansing. What I like to do is that I grab my spray bottle. First, I spray a few times to the air, like 2 or 3 times. I just spray the air and then I quickly pass my deck through there. Okay, basically do like, ooh, okay. Okay, this looked probably super ridiculous. But again, you do not want to damage your cards with water. You just quickly want to pass the deck through the little bits and pieces of your cleansing water, just symbolically letting the water cleanse your deck. Again, visualizing how the element of water cleans and cleanses your deck. Now, you might think, okay, the cleansing is done. No, it is not. Actually, it is not, because I'm extra. And what do I do after I finished these 3 cleansing parts? What I like to do is go through the smoke cleansing again, but now a little bit more thoroughly. And what do I like to do is that I literally go card by card and I pass every single card through the smoke again. And you might think this is a little too extra. I know it might sound like that, but then again, I only do this when the deck arrives to my collection, so I do it once. Sometimes, with exception when I feel like some deck is not quite working well later on, sometimes I repeat this process, but I'm going to actually speak about that in another video. So yeah, as I said, I'm just taking card by card, passing it through the smoke while I visualize cleansing the entire deck. Something I forgot to say, this is the part that actually determines how long will the ritual take, because when you're cleansing a tarot deck, usually a tarot deck consists of 78 cards. So that's a lot of cards that you have to pass through the smoke. And when you get an oracle deck that's, let's say, 44 cards, obviously that's a little quicker, you finish a little bit quicker. Okay, once I have passed every single card through the smoke, I take the deck as a whole again, and what I like to do is that I knock on it. I like to do it 3 times, you can do it just once or as many times as you like. This is just my final final energy push, like pushing out any sort of energy that might have been on the deck. And yeah, by the way, even if that deck literally just came out of the printing company, I still think like printing the deck, etc. I don't know where the deck was during the traveling, blah blah blah. I still like to think about pushing all the energy that it might kinda stored throughout that time in it, so I like to push it out. And after that, I like to sometimes finish the cleansing off. I like to blow on it a little bit to literally get rid of any last residual energy that might be on it. And that would be the cleansing part of the ritual. Now, as I said, and I'm probably going to say it a few more times in this video, feel completely free to tweak and change anything in this ritual. You don't have to repeat it exactly the way I do it. But this is the way I do it, and I really wanted to tell you about literally every single step that I do, because it works for me and I enjoy it, so maybe you would too. With that being said, let's proceed to the part number 2 of my welcome ritual for the new deck, which is the charging. Now, charging is a little less dramatic, maybe. So I'm going to show you again with an actual deck of cards. So again, featuring this lovely deck. By the way, for the people who are wondering, this is El Tarot del Dios de los Tres. I featured this deck in other videos on the channel. I'm going to link them down if you want to go ahead and check it. Now it is just my lovely assistant for the video, okay? So what do I like to do for charging the deck? After the deck was cleansed, I like to hold it like this, in between my hands and close to my heart. I like to close my eyes and I like to just focus, kind of like meditate with it and focus on pushing my energy to the deck. Visualization used to help me a lot with it. If you cannot visualize, I think you would have to do a little research if visualization is not really your thing. However, what I like to do, as I said, just place the deck over here in between my hands, visualize my energy flowing into the deck, and this is the moment that also sometimes take longer, sometimes take shorter, depending on I have no idea what. Sometimes I feel like I can do it quicker and it's effective and it's like done, but sometimes I feel like I need a little bit more time with certain decks, so I take a little bit longer. Or something that also tends to happen is that some days my mind is just way too distracted and I cannot really click into what I'm doing, or I cannot really focus on what I'm doing. So on those days, at those moments, obviously this takes a little longer because I'm trying to calm my mind somehow and focus on actually passing my energy into the deck, so charging the deck. Just go with your intuition, go with what feels right for you. After I have done that, I like to go a little extra again. Charging is also gonna be dramatic. And what I like to do is that I was holding the deck like this, right? What I like to do then is I like to turn the deck with the cards towards me, my body, and I like to, and I cannot really do it now because I have the mic and the beautiful crystal necklace, but I like to press the deck like against my heart, my actual heart, and really press it. I like to listen to my actual heartbeat and feel like it pushes more of my energy into the deck, if that makes sense, because I can really feel my heartbeat in that point, you know, and I can really connect with the deck in that way, if you know what I mean. I love that, and I find this one to be like actually the most important step, because this is where I feel I really am not only charging the deck but also kind of connecting with the deck. So maybe that also might be considered the third part, like the bonding. I don't know, I like to think about this as charging the deck with my essence, with my energy, so it can actually provide me with quality readings afterwards. So again, the time that I do this for depends entirely on my intuition, on how much time I have also and how I'm feeling, etc. With some decks I take longer time, some decks takes shorter. I don't know, listen to your intuition again. After that step comes the last step of charging the deck, and that one is a very symbolic one rather than energetical in my opinion, and that is, I take the deck again in between my hands like this, and I kinda either chant over it something or I whisper something to it. I like to go with whispering to the deck. Now, I'm not really going to tell you exactly what I whisper to it, but it's usually something in lines of welcoming the deck to my, practice toolkit or something like that, and asking the deck to assist me in guiding me on my spiritual path, something like that. Again, I'm not really going to tell you exactly the words I'm using because that's personal between me and the decks. However, you can just, again, go with your intuition, go with what feels good, and basically kindly ask the deck to assist you somehow in your readings or in guiding you or in helping you out. Or if you want the deck for something specific, let's say you got a deck for shadow work, then just ask your deck to assist you in shadow work. You can go really creative with that, however you feel like. You can just tell the deck basically why you brought it to your life. And the very last thing I would mention about this part of charging the deck is that I like to repeat what I'm saying to the deck around 3 times again. It's just something symbolic. You can say it just once or you can repeat it more times. It's completely up to you. I like to repeat it 3 times. I find the number 3 really magical. So I tell the deck 3 times what I would like it to do, if you will, as well as giving it its welcome 3 times. So that's just a little detail that I do. As we are approaching the end of our ritual, let's talk about the third part that I called bonding, even though, as I mentioned before, it's not really like you are going to bond with your deck forever and ever during these few minutes, right? But let's say this is the beginning of your relationship with your new deck. So what I like to do is something that you probably already heard of, and that is some sort of a welcome interview with your deck. There are so many ways how to go about this interview. It's an interview spread. People tend to do it in many different ways, asking many different questions to the deck. I like a very simple 3-card spread that I'm going to tell you about now. So I shuffle the deck and I ask it 3 very important and interesting questions, and answers to these questions tend to be really interesting, speaking from experience. So the very first question that I ask my new deck is, what is it here to teach me? And I like to ask this question because sometimes I get a deck with something on my mind, like some vision or something that I want to use the deck for. I have some sort of reasoning behind getting the deck. Let's go with the example of shadow work deck, even though ironically, I don't really have the deck for shadow work, but many people do. So let's say you get a deck for shadow work and you really want to shadow work with the deck. However, what if the deck actually has other plans? Because I personally like to believe that every deck has its own personality, and we are going to get into that in a minute. So I really like asking the deck, what is it here to teach me? What does that deck want to give me actually? What does it want to bring to my life and my spiritual practice? So that would be, as I said, the question number 1. The question number 2 is, what is the deck's personality? So as I said just a moment ago, I like to believe that every deck has its own personality, or it is at least something that I have proven to be somehow true in my experience. So I really like to ask a deck, what is its personality? Before I find out with readings, I really like to know what does the deck think its personality is. And interesting thing is that it usually turns out to be quite accurate. I'm gonna have to go through my previous deck interviews and see what do I think about it. Maybe make a video about it. Not a bad idea. Anyways, so that would be the question number 2. And the question number 3 is, how can I best approach the readings with this deck? So I like to ask this question basically to know what kind of mindset should I have, for example, to approach the messages of this deck, or how can I actually grasp the meaning of the messages a little bit better, how to take it, basically how to approach it, as the question says. It also turned out to be a super helpful question for the new deck. So these are the 3 questions that I like to ask a new deck, and here comes our journal. So what I like to do is to actually journal about it, because even if I can sometimes feel very lazy to journal about my readings, this particular reading, so the welcome spread, the welcome interview with the new deck, is something I consider incredibly important, because that is actually something I tend to come back to. So for example, I was just telling you about how I want to flip through some of my old welcome interviews with decks to see if, for example, the deck actually lives up to what they said about their personality, for example. So you want to be able to do that, so somehow come back to it. Now, of course, you can also record it or type it to your phone, whatever works for you. But I personally really like journaling about it in an actual paper journal, and then be able to just flip through it and find any interview with any deck that I'm looking for. It doesn't really have to be too long. If you want, you can simply write the titles of the cards that came up, like the question, the card, the question, the card, the question, the card, or you can journal a little bit more about each question. It's completely up to you. And something else I like to do by the end of the journaling kind of section, I like to write about my own personal feelings and opinions on the deck. So for example, what does the deck make me feel, how I felt about the ritual, how I felt about the cleansing part, how I felt about the charging part, or how I felt about an actual interview with the deck. Because that's also something interesting to come back to and reread at some other moment. So yeah, I really like to include that as well. So with that being said, that's actually everything that I like to do within this welcome ritual. Now, I must admit, I know now that I was talking about it, some parts probably sound a little bit extra, a little bit dramatic, if you will. It doesn't feel that way when I do that though. By the way, something that tends to happen is that during the welcome interview, I sometimes switch these questions. So for example, sometimes I ask first what's the deck's personality, then I ask what is it here to teach me, and then I ask how to approach these messages. Or I must say that in the beginning I was only asking what's the deck's personality and what is it here to teach me. I only later on included the third question being how to approach the messages, because I just found it useful. Again, this is also something you can completely change and tweak. You can come up with your own questions for the deck that you feel are appropriate for your new decks. Yeah, just basically have fun with it. Basically try to bond with your deck, get to know your deck somehow. Oh, and of course I forgot something. A little cherry on top of the pie is that I like to sleep with the deck under my pillow that same night. So I do the ritual at night, if you remember, because night is witchy for me. And after I'm done with the ritual, I place the deck under my pillow, and then I can still like go about my night, do stuff that I need to do, and I then sleep with the deck under my pillow. Now, some people sleep with the deck under their pillow for a couple of days. I like to do that only for that one night. I kinda seal my ritual with it, if you will. You don't have to do that. Again, you don't have to do any of that. But again, you can be inspired with that. You can pick some parts of it that you feel like doing. And yeah, so with that being said, I really hope you liked this video. Let me know down below if this type of ritual is something that you do with your decks as well, or if you do something completely different or something similar. I don't know, let me know about your welcoming ritual for your decks, if you do any, of course. And if you do not do any of these sorts of ritual, let me know as well. If you just buy the deck and just read with it, how is your experience with it? Or if your experience differs, whether you do something like that or not. Just let me know down below about any of your experiences. I'm always happy to read you. And yeah, if you like this video, please leave it a like and consider subscribing so the channel can grow. And with that being said, please stay kind, and I'm gonna see you in the next video. Bye bye!